I call on Ms. Lee from Pennsylvania for your 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today's hearing is framed as a conversation about restoring trust and enhancing transparency at the Employee Benefit Security Administration. But what's really in question here is whose trust is being restored, not whose expense. Unfortunately, the majority seems to think that restoring trust means making life easier for employers under investigation. To them, balancing the scales means tipping them further towards corporations and away from the workers. EBSA, their core mission is to protect workers' retirement and health benefits, not to cater to employers. Imagine working your entire career. You make it to retirement, but you find that all your savings are gone because your employer or your benefits manager lied, misused your funds, or just outright stole from your plan. EBSA exists to put rules in place to help prevent this from happening. And when those rules are broken, EBSA has the authority and the responsibility to hold these employers or plan managers accountable. Over the years, EBSA's workforce has steadily declined, and its responsibilities have increased, all while its funding has remained flat. Even so, EBSA is still taking meaningful enforcement actions to protect workers' benefits. Mr. Khawar, could you just discuss very briefly, because I also want to make sure that we can hit a couple of things, but can you discuss some of the complexities in investigating and concluding a case, particularly what factors might slow things down?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I will try to be brief, but it is there is a lot.
Understood.
The size and complexity of the entity being investigated, the volume of evidence that they produce, what that evidence shows, including, there is not a practice that if you ask a question about X and then you get evidence of wrongdoing somewhere else that we ignore it. So it may lead to additional document requests or questions. How cooperative the entity is. It's not infrequent that EBSA starts with voluntary production of documents and then doesn't get the documents that it asked for, needs to move to a subpoena, needs to enforce that subpoena in court. All of that is leading to delays between when the investigation opens and when EBSA is kind of done with just the very first stage, which is they have a conclusion of what they think has happened. They present that to the fiduciaries and say, these are our findings. Can we talk about how we proceed?
And if I could add, just what impact will the agency's proposed budget cuts have on the department's ability to close those cases quickly then?
I mean, I think given the severity of the cuts that we've seen just in this year, there's going to be a pretty unfortunate choice between, do you allow these cases to drag on for longer because you need to reshuffle personnel, or do you just close them even though you're convinced that there's something there and people have been harmed?
So instead of cutting funding, we should be strengthening this agency. Because what's being presented as a push for transparency is in reality just a set of proposals that risk bogging down the enforcement with additional red tape, slowing investigations, shielding employers, and draining resources that should be used to protect those workers. Mr. Khawar, in your testimony, you stated for every dollar that Congress invests in EBSA, the agency has consistently returned many multiples of that amount in direct payments to plans, participants, and beneficiaries. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, one figure is $17,000 approximately per investigator per day. Another figure for one specific category of cases that shifted to, in light of budget cuts, trying to find more impactful cases that were going to impact more people. The number for that is about $150,000 per investigator per day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So in other words, cutting EBSA's funding actually costs taxpayers and workers more money. So why are we uplifting bills that would further drain EBSA's resources through burdensome reporting requirements while doing nothing to help workers recover their stolen benefits? I can speak to EBSA's importance firsthand. In my district, a Pittsburgh area administrator overseeing 240 or so retirement plans embezzled at least $5.5 million from workers' accounts. EBSA stepped in and took swift action, freezing the assets and securing court orders, led to a $50 million settlement and likely saved my constituents millions more. Yet instead of supporting EBSA's critical work such as this, the majority wants to undermine it. Today's bills don't restore trust or improve transparency. They shift EBSA's focus away from defending workers' benefits and towards easing the burdens on employers. They frame investigations as too long, without regard regard for the complexity or for the stakes. And they call for transparency measures that actually make it harder for EBSA to do its job, shielding employers from scrutiny while creating new hurdles for enforcement. If this committee is serious about restoring, improving the function of EBSA, the solution is clear: increasing the agency's funding. That's how you build trust, not just with employers, but with the workers whose futures are on the line. I thank you all so much for your time, and I yield back.